Why is mine pointed down? Skinny boy squeeze here.
Hard to say.
Why is it pointed down?
Hard to say.
I had this all set up. It was pointed upright. God. Why? You sat here, and I set everything up just the way I wanted it, and then I come back. I leave for 10 seconds to do like a little.
You can't prove anything.
I think the video was going.
Are you gonna set the timer?
Oh. Yeah, I guess. Oh, yeah, since we're using.
I know. Remember this happened last time too. We had to do the watch, and then and then you had to show me. But I think it's going to be okay.
I think I think so. Oh no, that's alarm. Hold on. That's a stopwatch. 30-minute timer. Okay, I set it. It's on the watch. Those of you watching on YouTube can see that, but those of you listening, not on YouTube and not watching the video. We'll just have to believe me.
I got a new microphone stand. He bought it for me.
That's true.
It's very so short though. It feels funny.
Do you not like it?
No, I don't know. I don't know. Does it go any higher?
No, this one is non-adjustable. But
right.
I can swap it out for the other one.
No. Well, we'll try it. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, see how it goes for this one. And if you don't like it, then we'll.
I liked like the security of having it here, my instinct is to lean down.
Well, that's a good instinct.
I know, but then that's not comfortable. And I feel like now, before I felt very free to just speak. And now I feel like, I need to make sure that I'm saying everything into that microphone. Okay,
I can get you.
No. We're going to try. Nope, stay. Let's try. We'll see. Maybe it'll be our best podcast ever with the little stubby one.
It might just be our best podcast ever with the little stubby one. That's my nickname.
And I figured out what we're going to talk about today.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, actually, we kind of already told them what we're going to talk about because last week when we were in Hudson, we were like gearing up for our review session.
Yes.
And then I guess we can change it up, but I think we have 2 more December podcasts. And so I was thinking we could do this one to talk about, so our review session, I think, as we mentioned, is 3 parts. One is looking back. So we review 2023 and all the things that went well and not so well. And then part 2 is looking ahead. And I was thinking that could basically be, today could be talking about our 2023.
Oh, yeah.
And then as we get like closer to the new year, talk about what we want for the year ahead.
That's a great idea.
I like how we're planning this now as we're starting and not beforehand. You guys can see how much prep we do on this.
We have 28 minutes left.
Perfect.
This is a great intro. Like if YouTube is going to do the auto chapters, this would be the intro. And now it's over.
Because I obviously like no YouTube though. No, but can't you choose your custom?
You can.
But
you can also choose the option to say, hey, let YouTube do it on its own.
Oh, I see.
And I don't know if I trust YouTube to do that because it's like it may come up with some sort of chapter things that I don't want it to come up with.
I don't know. I think the YouTube, the algorithm is probably smarter than us.
Maybe, although I will say lately I've been using ChatGPT to come up with new titles, descriptions, and tags for videos. And today, notwithstanding, so here's the data is in too, by the way. ChatGPT generated titles so far have vastly outperformed Anthony generated titles on YouTube Shorts.
Interesting. How does that make you feel?
It makes me feel obsolete. Like I'm going to be ChatGPT's vestigial tail pretty soon.
I actually did kind of feel that way in all seriousness when when the whole like AI anything, because like every app now is doing AI integration.
Right.
I don't really know how I feel about that, I guess, because then it feels this is a slight tangent, but I don't love knowing, it seems like all app developers now, like that's what they're focused on. And I'm like, some of you apps, like there's been a really long log of features that we want. And instead of working on those, everybody's going, anyway.
I do think that's going to blow through. Like
I think so too, but
like
it's
once
just.
they realize it's not going to help every use case, like people are going to have to still do some thinking.
Well, and I think too, is like, oh, it's so cool. It was like a novelty. And now it's sort of like, okay, everybody's like, I get it. And like, for sure, build that in. I feel like I would like for more businesses or more apps to question, like, is this the number one thing that our users want from us right now? And I think some apps, perhaps, like I could see, something that's like social media planning, to your point, like coming up with like related tags or catchy titles or, whatever the case may be, the best time to post something, whatever, like all that stuff is great. But Anyway,
It doesn't so far. Well, we don't have to. We can jump off of AI since you already had a topic. Well, the review plan. I think that's actually. Let's move on. Let's move on.
we can table AI. I think that's interesting. And I don't also. I feel like I don't know enough about AI yet to fully have an opinion. Like I'm just now. So we're both kind of just dabbling around with it.
I'm dabbling. I'm diddling. I'm doing everything I can with Chat GPT.
So we are going to table that. We're back on our favorite table, you guys. And in case you're wondering, it's been a month now, and we are still obsessed with it. Like I don't think a single day goes by where one of us doesn't say, "I love this table so much."
Oh, I know. You know what? If we were like real YouTubers, like YouTube influencers, just YouTubers, we would have like a. In addition to saying, "Oh, hey guys, like and subscribe if you like, Candy Creatives," we would have like a little buy link down in the description.
We totally would.
That was like, "Hey, here's a link to the table."
Yeah.
Even though a Room and Board doesn't do affiliates, I'm pretty sure it would still. Sure. I would still love to. Share. We
should do that.
We should do. Maybe I'll just do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay. So 2023, Anthony.
Yes, Lauren.
Let's. I don't really have a structured thing, and I didn't get our little notebooks out because that's how formal our review session is, guys. We have notebooks.
We do.
We have. Oh, you know what? We have notebooks. Really quick.
Yeah.
We have notebooks, and then I bumped it up a little bit this time because we like to do it by hand, and I think that will always be the case. Like there's something about pen and paper, like we like in general, like that's how we do a lot of our creative thinking, both of us.
Right.
I think like sometimes that's our
Once a year when I have a creative thought, I sit down and I jot it
on your like one little piece of paper.
Yep.
No, so yeah, we're very pen and paper oriented, and I lost my train of thought because your dumb joke.
I was hoping you were going to say my dumb joke, and you did. And it exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess I need to get used to it. That's the rhythm of the podcast is dumb joke. And I think I need to get better at like, what's going to be my approach when you make one of your dad jokes on the podcast?
Wait. We went from dumb joke to dad joke, which I feel like is a stretch.
Those are the same. No, those are the like you make dad jokes and dumb jokes here. So I need like a little, Mike. He's really funny. We listen to his podcast all the time.
Mike Vecchione.
Yes. And you know how, and I'm forgetting his producer's name, Shannon,
I think.
I can't remember. But anyway, you know how they do that little like sound?
Yeah.
And there's in a different context, but I feel like I want to get some of that for like, or just like a buzzer, like a Taboo, the game, like the Taboo buzzer, like, like I'm not going to, that way I don't have to think of how to reply to it, but I can let you know that it's acknowledged.
Okay. That's a good idea.
So we'll work on that.
Okay.
Okay. But back to, planning, and we do pen and paper, and we still did that this time.
Yes.
And it was great. But then one thing we noticed is we're not, and I think we talked about this last time, or maybe a couple of weeks ago, we are not great with like reviewing those notebooks.
Right.
I think just because like they're not like on us all the time. As much as like we love notebooks, we tend to be, most of our work happens digitally.
Yes, that was my big problem last year was we did all this work planning out all these things, and it was so great. And then I get halfway through the year and I'm like, what the hell were my goals? I totally forgot.
Yeah. And I even I did the exact same thing. And I even built in like into the workbook, like, okay, let's take a time or take a beat and figure out how you're going to like build a system for this.
Year?
No, and last year.
Oh, you did that last year too?
We had the exact same workbook this year and last year.
Well, then how did I screw up so...
It's because we don't see through that final step. Like it's there and we're always kind of like, oh yeah. And I think by the end, like we're all like motivated and excited, but it feels like work. So anyway, this is a really long way of saying that this year, in addition to the notebook, so we did all of it by hand, and then I created a Notion template.
Yes.
And Notion really isn't like my favorite app, but it is pretty darn useful in so many ways, and it was great for this because I basically, I put little fields and like individual pages and links and everything for all the sections, and I think it probably took us 5-10 minutes max to get everything from our notebook into Notion, and now we have it's digitized.
And we haven't done this yet, or rather, I haven't done it yet, but I think I'm going to. I will. My promise to you is that I'm going to do this, is to set up a reminder, whether, I don't know what the frequency is, whether it's quarterly, monthly, weekly, something like, I don't know, that is like a check-in. It's like, hey, it's even if it's just a little thing like, when is the last time you reviewed your goals? We should do, because I think we've done that before. And I think what happens is we just like hit, like we're just like, I don't want to. But I wonder if we put it on like our pack calendar. That's what we call our shared calendar. Yes.
Like the same way when we do in a perfect world, like the Candid Creatives, like that goes on our shared calendar.
Yes.
That's something that we're both doing together. And I think when we have a shared event like that, like then that kind of forces both of us,
right.
Because you can't just like delete it. Cause like that's the other one's thing as well.
Right.
And
well,
then
it's like having an accountability buddy when you're going to the gym. It's a lot easier.
And then if we're going to skip it or delete it, we have to go like, do we want to skip or delete it? And then I think hopefully we'll be like, no, we should at least open the Notion app.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it'll be easier that, I'm sorry, I feel like my coffee just kicked in, even though it's been hours. But even because it's on Notion now, I think what might be good is like if we're out at like Hellcat or Scruffy Duffy's or West Bank or whatever, and we have
these are bars and restaurants that we frequent.
Sorry for context. These are our neighborhood haunts. Then we're like, oh, let's just do it now, and we can bring out our phones. And it'll be ready.
We could even, this is dorky, but you could even set up reminders within Notion.
True.
And little, if we want to get that
I don't really know how to
dorky.
do that, but I could learn.
Yeah, and plus then you got to enable notifications from Notion, and it's really easy to ignore that. But since we already do reminders, we can, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so Anthony.
What if,
go ahead.
One last idea for this, to make it sticky, is what if we took some of the advice of some of the books that we've read, and I can't remember whether this was Atomic Habits or Work Clean, but it's the idea of, I think Atomic Habits calls it habit stacking, Work Clean calls it something else.
No, I think that's Charles Duhigg that calls it something else.
Okay. Oh, right. But the idea of if you have to do something you don't like, maybe pair it with something you do like.
Yeah.
And it's not the stacking, because that's like you put on your shoes in order to go to the gym, that kind of thing. This is more, all right, if we're going to do something that we don't want to do, or we want to do it, but we're not like, yay, let's do this. Maybe if it's every time we get the reminder, it's like, well, we'll split a bottle of champagne while we do it.
That's a good idea.
Or go to one of the
idea.
aforementioned bars and restaurants to do that.
Right. Then we can have our fried pickles and discuss.
Yes.
And fried pickles will get us there. And then,
right.
And then I think also would ease the pain. Fried pickles dipped in ranch would ease the pain of like, how are you doing on goals? Ooh.
I feel like fried pickles and ranch would ease the pain of anything.
That's true. That's
but
true.
especially the like, hey, how have you failed meeting your goals?
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of, not goals. Goals is next week.
Right.
We're going to talk about reviews of 2023. And wait, how much time do we have?
We have
18
minutes left.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't think we have to be like super structured here and go through like the highest high and the lowest low, but in general, how did your 2023 go, Anthony? What were some of your takeaways from our review session?
Some of the takeaways from the review session, excuse me, I'm getting a little
emotional.
Just thinking about how great our year was. No, I got like a little thing in my throat.
Do you want to go to a cough drop and I can go? Or water? Okay.
No, I'm determined.
Push through. Do you want me to talk?
No.
Okay.
I think I got it.
He's pulling together, guys. He's pulling together for you.
Just every time I talk about my goals, I get a little weepy. No, 2023 was a great year. Some of the highlights were, I worked on a Norwegian boat, which if you do cruise ship comedy, and to comedians out there, you shouldn't. But if you do find yourself on a boat, Norwegian is fantastic. Carnival's good too. But Norwegian, you get like a room that actually has a window. The pay is much better. The food's, better. Anyway, long story short, that was like a goal towards the end of last year that I added, and I met it at the beginning of this year. I was on a boat, so that was nice. Did some feature work on the road. Those are some highlights down in Florida, and then Fort Wayne. And those were great. It was kind of comedy focused, some career milestones, just getting out on the road, doing more work, doing feature work.
It did feel this year, I mean, like obviously I don't like track how often you get up, but it does seem like you were, now I made the dumb joke. It does seem like more regularly, like that was just a part of our routine, is a lot of nights you were up on stage or headed out or traveling for work.
Yeah, and that's
cool
that's kind of the goal. It's like, all right, well, if I'm not on the road, I'm out here, and then if I am on the road, then I'm up.
Well, it was interesting too to see that you pulled back on mics a little bit.
Yeah,
and I think that seemed like it's a good thing for you because you're like, okay, like everybody tells you need to do mics, and you're like, okay, let's try some of these. And I think just watching you walk through that process of where you were seeing like the best growth opportunities and like the best. What am I trying to say? Like modes of improvement. You know what I'm trying to say? Like it seemed like it was interesting to watch you figure out like, okay, how truly is my time best spent, and like analyzing it a little bit more empirically.
Right. And it was not spent at open mics.
Right. And I think like if you ever still have something you're really working on, you kind of know which ones now you want to go to.
Right. Like there are some things that I'm like, all right, this is more experimental. And it's like a totally kind of divergent thing. I know that I can take it to a mic and, it's low stakes. So yeah, cool. Those are some of the highlights, mostly comedy focus. Did a couple of commercial gigs that I'm proud of. And the table actually was another highlight. I think for both of us.
It was on our list. Yeah, both of us, the table.
Oh, the other thing that surprised me, I know we're still on May, we got time, was some of the other highlights were people visiting, family and friends.
Oh, yeah, that is true.
We had a couple of friends and then a couple of family members drop in, and that was,
and that was just the best time.
Yeah.
In both cases, yeah. Good memories.
Yeah. What about you, Lauren? What were some of your highlights from 2023?
Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit and bend to the question, because one thing I kind of noticed, which was different, is so for the people at home, we have, like I said, we have list like the good things that happen and the not so good things that happen, and then narrow it down a little bit to basically kind of like recap the year. And the idea when I built the notebook that way was to figure out like, okay, how do I get more of the good experiences and fewer of the bad experiences? And I do think that still works, and it always has for me. But this year I was noticing like I didn't really have any like super, like I didn't have a ton like, oh my gosh, it was the best thing ever. And I also really didn't have anything of like, oh, this wasn't great. But then I also had this just like which on paper, I know that sounds like, oh, that sounds really flat. But I also am like, I feel like I can't remember the last time I've been like this happy and this content as like especially the past 6 months in particular, but the whole year in general. And I was wondering, we didn't talk about this during our planning session, but this is something I've been musing since we've gotten home. I was wondering if there's like a little bit, so we obviously had like the pandemic lockdown lifestyle thing
I do
for
remember.
2020 and 2021. And that wasn't great in so many ways. I don't want to go back there. But as we've talked about, like there were, like for me, especially as an introvert who doesn't like love social obligations and going out, like I'm a homebody, I'm an introvert, I don't love to travel. Like I don't, I kind of loved it. I mean, not the whole like people are dying and like you can't leave the house. But like that totally free calendar feeling was so great. And now we don't need it. We don't need that anymore. Obviously, like the world is like back open. But I feel like I've really sort of like internalized or sort of like realized that about myself and allowed myself to embrace it. And so even though we're not in lockdown, we're still like doing stuff and doing more than we were in 2020.
You hear that? She's not in lockdown. All right.
I'm allowed out of the house. But yeah, I feel like those years probably changed all of us, but like I feel like they gave me permission to like be me a little bit more, and not feel this need to like live a certain way and have these certain highlights. I'm like, I'm supposed to go on a certain number of trips and go to like, like the coolest like new restaurants, and not to say like I never want to do those things. But I just feel like peaceful. Like my anxiety is way down. That was probably a high I have been anxious. Oh, and we both talked about regular journaling.
Yes.
Was a high.
I mean, like
surprisingly. Yeah, I know. And I couldn't even really say why, but I was also wondering if like that is contributing to like just my overall sort of like peaceful feeling.
I bet it is. Because I find, and I haven't been as good about doing my morning pages lately or journaling in general, but I find it's almost like meditation or something. It's just a nice way to like process things that are going on, whether it's something you're trying to work through. That's one way to do it. But even just morning pages, it's like revving the engine. I always say it's like revving the engine, like blow out the dust from the engine, like the smoke and stuff. And then you're left with a clear head afterwards. And I always find that I perform much better after that.
Yeah, I agree. So that was like I said, those were like the sort of things where there were no like moments that really like just blew me away. Like, oh my gosh, this like, I did a polar ice plunge or finished a marathon. It was amazing. Like that was not my year. It was a quiet little year, but it was really nice.
Yeah. If you had done an ice plunge, I think everybody would have known about it because that's one of the requirements is you have to tell if you do a polar bear ice plunge.
I see.
But so that's the fact that you don't have like a ton of super highs or a ton of super lows, that reminds me of like the stoicism in general, where they're kind of all about like, don't don't worry about the lows. That's all internal. You can,
Right.
Things just happen. It's with the value that you place on it or how you choose to interpret that matters. And so it's like, all right, so if a bad thing happens, it's not really a bad thing. It's just a thing that happened. But they would also advocate by that same logic, if a good thing happens, it's not necessarily a good thing. It's just a thing that happened. You think it's good.
True.
And I get that. And it sounds like that's kind of, I don't know if you intentionally embrace that.
No, yeah. I mean, obviously we read a lot of Stoicism stuff, but I never consciously thought about it that way. But yeah, you're probably right. Maybe I also internalize all those Ryan Holiday books that we have listened to many, many times.
I always wondered though if like Marcus Aurelius was dead wrong in that, because there is something kind of nice. Like, what if you just ignored the bad stuff but still leaned into the good stuff?
Yeah, I agree because I think. Well, but I don't know because I see what you're saying and I agree. But then also sometimes I think, when you get like really like excited about something or like you're determined that something is going to be like good and fun. But then sometimes I feel like, okay, like we're going like out to dinner and, like to this one place and it's going to be so great. Like we're so excited. And I almost feel like and not to say that we don't have a great time sometimes when we have something planned and do that thing. Like wine tasting the other day is a great example. It was on the calendar. It was great. Exceeded expectations probably. We had the best time. But then also there are other times when like we don't plan anything at all and we're just like, oh, we're going to go like across the street and to, West Bank, and then that turns into like another stop, and then we go for a walk after and we walk Bailey later in the night and have a great conversation. Like that we never like planned to do something fun or good. And I think to your point, if like leaning into something good, I think that's great. This isn't making sense. Just hear me out. But I think if you lean into something good and you're like, this is great. But then the danger is if you're like, well, I want more of that. Actually, this ties into that email that Jason just forwarded me that we talked about. But like this idea of like, then you want to like create those moments because they're good. And I think for me, when I've done that before, then I end up like only thinking ahead to those moments. Like, oh, this one's going to be a good one because it was good last time.
Right.
That was a bit of a tangent.
It was.
Deep. Wouldn't you just say?
Yeah. That was the next word coming out of my mouth was deep.
It was either deep or weird.
That was going to be the next word. Yeah, deep and weird. See, I could have made a joke right there, and I didn't.
I know. I saw your face.
You saw
to.
The wheels were turning.
I totally did.
Deep and weird, and it was like, oh my God, it's right there. But I didn't go in. I didn't do it.
You're going to let that one go too?
I am going to let that one go.
Right. So maybe, how much time do we have?
We have 8 minutes and 16 seconds. So
maybe this is something that we did per our conversation. Maybe we don't want to dwell on this, but is there anything that was negative that you would care not to repeat for our listeners? Or like any maybe any like lesson, not necessarily bad things that happened, but like any lessons that you kind of took out of 2023 that you're thinking, okay, you know what, I'm gonna change it up for 2024 to maybe steer myself away from that.
Yeah. I think in general, it was. There were moments. There were protracted moments, which I don't even think a moment can be protracted. There were protracted periods of half-assery that I would like to minimize. I would like to half-ass being a half-ass.
I get it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
I would rather so. Or maybe whole ass trying to be whatever. But
whole ass trying to be a whole ass?
Yes.
No.
An
a no ass? No. Because if you're being productive, you want to be full ass.
Full ass.
Yeah.
I think it's an ass trying to be full ass.
Yeah.
I think that's correct. It is. Okay. Workshopping here. But yeah, that is it. I think there were like large chunks of time that were half-assed, and I would like to trim those down.
Maybe this is trotting on next week's conversation, but any thoughts on how to mitigate that for next year? Or kind of steer the ship towards full ass?
I don't know. Like when I was recruiting and I had the same.
I feel like you maybe need to give context.
Oh, so I was back in the day, I was a recruiter.
Yeah, pre-comedy career.
Pre-comedy, I was a recruiter. Headhunter. And then before that, I was an internal recruiter. And basically my day job was basically reaching out to people, taking them out for coffees. And that was pretty much it, convincing them to have coffee with leadership. Okay. And if there were ever periods of time where I like wasn't hitting my goals or whatever, or anybody on the team wasn't, the advice was always just get back to basics. All you have to do is It was this dumb equation that we had, but it was set up meetings and be in meetings. You should be setting up or being in 10 meetings a week. And I thought that was that's an easy
nice,
thing to
clean,
do.
simple.
Yeah. So I don't know what the exact formula is, but to me, it's like just getting back to basics. It's writing jokes, scheduling time to write every day. And then it's also scheduling time to like reach out to producers and be like, hey, can you throw me up in a show, whatever, at least until I'm strong enough where they're knocking down my door, like, oh, can you come on our show? We're dying for that. I don't know if that ever happens, but so I think it's getting back to basics, writing, setting out newsletter, podcast, like basically getting in this cadence of doing the basic stuff.
I like that.
Yeah,
routine, maybe.
Yeah, it is kind of a routine.
Fixing your routine or building a routine.
Yes. Yeah. The ideal day, which could be another podcast idea, is just talking about that. But it's like writing, it's morning routine of, gym, writing.
You know what? I actually took that out of the planner for this year because I feel like we were just so repetitive. Like that we used to have in my planning thing, I used to have write down your ideal day. And it was transformative for us 10 years ago for sure, because we basically realized how far away we were from that. Especially when we were like in our day jobs and we knew that's not what we wanted to necessarily be doing for the rest of our life. And so like, okay, I think we figured way back then, it was really easy to figure out what we don't want. Like a lot of people know like, oh, I don't want this job, or like, I don't want a boss I don't like, or, whatever the case may be. But it's harder sometimes to be like, okay, what do you want? And I think that was always a great activity. But then I took it out because we got not so good at it, but like, I felt like we were always really repetitive, like, cause we know what our good day would be, right? Like you get up at 5, you have a coffee, you write your journal. But maybe I should have left it in. Maybe that would have been helpful for you this year.
Yes, for half-asses like me, I think maybe a little remedial education in that, or it's not even education. It's just like, hey man, think about what you actually want.
Yeah, and maybe even just like, even though forcing yourself to write it down, and then I think also doing that, we could be like, oh, I'm not doing that now. Like what you want to be doing, but I think when you write it down and look at it, and then like compare it to like, what am I doing currently?
Drinking Manhattans at noon. Yeah. That does.
Now I'm in Manhattan. Sounds
now
good.
It sounds pretty tasty. Well, you asked me a question.
Yeah.
And then
what did I ask?
I wanted to reciprocate because that's the kind of guy I am. But I forgot what your question was.
Negatives, or the not so great things.
Oh yes. What about you?
Mine, it's kind of the same category where it was like no, like one really specific thing for me. Actually, no, it was pretty specific. My negatives are more specific than my positives. My positives were just like, hey, I'm happy. That's great. And you know what? This is like a recurring theme on the podcast for me, I'm realizing, is deadlines. I think actually our first thing.
Yeah.
And I really zeroed in, and I don't know if this is a change for me. Again, maybe it was COVID that changed this, or if I'm just realizing it about myself, but I hate external deadlines. I hate them. And even now, like I don't know if you noticed, I was a little bit pissy this morning. And I can tell you right now, it's because I have I had to start revisions, and revisions are due on the 2nd. And it's nothing even against the book. Like I'm happy with the book. I'm not even like unhappy working on it's a fun challenge. Like it's all the good stuff. But there's just something about like knowing that somebody, like I have to get something to somebody by a certain date.
Oh yeah.
And then the same thing kind of is applying on the design side for like, I loved building the website template. I don't as much love doing the client work. And that's not to say I'm like never going to write a book for a publisher again, or never going to take on a client project, but I'm really kind of just like honing in on my ideal day is being able to work on the project that I want to that day, like whatever I feel really excited, inspired by.
Right.
And I pretty much always have one of those. It's not like I'm like, if I don't have a deadline, I'm just going to watch TV all day. Like I always have stuff I'm excited for, but sometimes what I'm excited for right now is not what's committed to in a contract.
Yeah.
And I know, I don't know, like maybe I'm like crazy in thinking that I could set my own deadlines, but I'm wondering like going forward, and I haven't really this is breaking news even in my own head, but I'm wondering like even if going forward, if maybe like if I have a book idea, rather than pitching it to Nick, my agent, and having her sell that idea and then going down that process, like maybe I just wait and write the book that I want to write and finish it, and then see if she can sell it, and if not, then I can publish it. That way I'm never like committed to something until it's done, basically.
Right. And then you also don't have to worry about, I mean, sometimes this is good to have, but sometimes you don't want this, where you have to worry about them getting their stink on the book,
Right.
editing it or
Yeah,
anything else.
yeah,
Like if
yeah,
you come to them with maybe essentially, whether it's a first draft or an edited, copy edited, I'm sorry, just
Right.
the
Right.
first round of edits done.
Or if I did want to lean in, and I don't know because I didn't really like self-publishing, but like even like leaning to that a little bit more, but again, not even announcing what I'm self-publishing until it's like all the way done. So that way it's not like, well, I've announced that I have this book coming out on this day, because that's still a deadline. I've still committed to someone.
Then people are like, oh, she's got a new book coming out. And you're like, oh God, I got to deliver that.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't know if that's the change for me or if it's like I said, just like self-awareness now that I'm 40 and mature and know myself. But like I feel like I used to maybe find those I feel like early in my career those deadlines, external deadlines, were perhaps essential so that I actually finished something, because like I'd never done it before. I was like, oh, you just gotta get it done. And maybe I'm just now in a different like creative space where I'm like, no, I want to enjoy every day. Like I don't like that feeling of waking up and being like, well, I got to do this today because someone's expecting it on this. I don't like that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, the comedians do that with specials, some of them, where they'll shoot the whole thing themselves and then they'll take that finished product and shop it around to see.
I like that.
Hey, who wants to buy this?
I like that. Because then you're never, and I think as we talked about, I think you could argue that the pressure does create something. Was that time?
That is time.
All right, I finished my thought. I think you could argue that like maybe the pressure does create something. If nothing else,
pressure.
Yeah.
Like,
I could see that argument, but on the flip side, I could also see if you have like a deadline and like if you're like, well, maybe you had this other great idea that would have made it amazing, but you don't have time. Like.
Right. Oh yeah. No.
Yeah. So it's kind of I could see that being a slippery slope of like, well, you're never going to finish if you keep thinking it could be better and better and better. Like at some point you got to ship it, but
yeah, I wish there was some. I mean, maybe this is like an intuitive thing that artists develop the farther along in the craft and career that they get. But it'd be nice if you could intuit what the diminishing returns look like. It's like, all right, if I spend another month on this book, am I going to get a lot? Is it going to be 20% better, or is it going to be like 2%
right.
better?
Well, and I don't think you and I are like that, because I know there's some, I don't know if it was Da Vinci, like I can't remember. Maybe it was probably Da Vinci because I think we read that book. But like there are like a lot of like famous artists who very famously just never finished things because they just tinkered with it.
Da Vinci.
But I don't think you and I would be that way, because I think we both get to the point of like, yes, we want to make something as good as possible, but I don't think we would just hold on to it indefinitely, because at some point we're going to be like, I am sick of this. I want to go on to the next thing.
Oh yeah, all the time.
So I don't think that we would be in danger of just working on the great American novel until we're 80.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for joining us on this week's Candid Creatives. We covered some great topics.
We did.
AI to lead us off. We covered some dumb dad jokes, as I'm apparently learning that they're the same thing. We covered the year in review. Stay tuned for next week when we'll talk about maybe our goals for this upcoming year.
Our vision for 2024. Oh, and word of the year. I love talking about word of the year.
Which is very exciting.
So that's coming up on the... Oh, wait. Isn't next Tuesday Christmas?
No, isn't Christmas...
It's Monday. And then Tuesday... So we have to record on. Well, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we can figure it out. We can either record on a Sunday or whatever. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
But yeah, thanks so much for listening. Thanks for watching and being here with us. We're here every week on YouTube and anywhere podcasts can be found. You can follow Lauren on Instagram at @ByLaurenLane. You can follow me on Instagram at Anthony Ladon. We're both on YouTube as well. The links are somewhere in our bios, and because I don't remember what Lauren's is off the top of my head. Our book, by the way, Emergency Contact, is still doing well. Sales are up, and
sales are good.
If you're in the mood for a holiday read, check it out. It's called Emergency Contact.
Yeah, a little holiday comedy. It's with a bit of a romance.
Yeah, Anyway, all right. Thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next week. All right, bye.